How do we handle and prepare for the appraisal amidst a market when contract sales prices are actually greater than what recent sales in the area reflect? Can we talk to the appraiser? We're going to answer these questions and more. I am here today with Mark Durden, who is a certified residential appraiser at DS Murphy Appraisals. Let's dive in with a fun question first. Fact or fiction, can we talk to the appraiser?
Oh, absolutely. You can talk to the appraiser. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to communicate with the appraiser. That makes the process so much smoother.
So what everybody wants to know is, how do we prepare for the appraisal, especially when we are in a heavy seller's market? Because many of our sellers are receiving multiple offers that are for more than the list price, and there may or may not be comps that actually reflect that yet.
I encourage every listing agent to meet the appraiser at the house and be prepared to provide some information that would be helpful to the appraiser. Number one, talk about the features that sold the house. There's always something about a house that makes it sell. Make sure the appraiser knows that. Also, talk to them about the comparables that they use, that they're going to help your value, and the sale that might hurt your value. And you want to talk about that because there's a reason why it's sold for less, and usually that's not a very evident reason.
So talk to us about the choice of a buyer's financing and how this could possibly impact the appraisal process. For example, if the seller accepts a contract that is conventional versus FHA or VA, is it going to make a difference in terms of the value?
Honestly, generally the value should be the same. It's the same. It's a very similar process regardless if it's conventional or FHA or VA. It's a little different with FHA and VA in that there's a few more aspects of the property that we need to report in the appraisal. For FHA specifically, they're really concerned about health and safety issues. And so if you have a set of stairs that doesn't have a handrail, well then I have to make my appraisal subject to a handrail being installed, things like that. If there's exposed wood or mildew present in the house, we definitely need to make sure that that's going to be in the appraisal, and we're going to have to make it subject to that being repaired.
And in terms of receiving a copy of the purchase and sale agreement, you guys would typically get that from the lender perhaps, and it's okay for the real estate agent to provide that to you as well.
Matter of fact, I always ask the real estate agent if they have a copy of it because I want to make sure that I have the most recent version. And a lot of people might say, well, why would I give you a copy of the contract if you know the sales price? Why do we need an appraisal? Well, it's a little known fact actually that appraisers don't determine value. We estimate value, and we do that by interpreting the market. And well, the market is the buyers and the sellers. And so we can do that through the contract. That's our indication of what the market is telling us the value of that home is.
If we're not happy with the value that is reflected on the appraisal, what would be your advice?
Reach out to the appraiser just for clarification. Now, if the appraiser is not willing to give you that information or be very helpful, you obviously need to go to the lender. And every lender has a process in place. A lot of them call it a reconsideration of value, where you provide information that you feel is relevant to the value of this property and things that the appraiser may have missed, or provide additional comparables that would be helpful in the process.
Is it a fact or a fiction that appraisers need to use comps that are within 1 mile of the subject property? Can they go beyond that?
That is fiction. That is a guideline that was set in place years ago, but it's not a requirement that appraisers stay within 1 mile of the subject property. As a matter of fact, in most of our appraisals that we do today, it's really impossible to stay within 1 mile. It's important, though, that the appraiser be able to define that market and provide comparables that are within that market. More often than not, we'll define a market as a school district and based on the subject property and the similar properties that are to the subject property.
Now, one surprise that we can oftentimes face with an appraisal report is, let's say a property is listed as a 4-bedroom, but the appraisal comes back and it says 3. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you all would define a bedroom?
Sure. A bedroom has to have a window, door, and a closet. We all know that. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize is you have to have adequate access to a full bathroom, which means that there's need to be a full bathroom on that same level.
What is Tidewater? This is a question that sometimes comes up with VA contracts.
Well, Tidewater is a process that VA has in place so that when the appraiser realizes that the value is going to come in less than the contract price, the appraiser contacts the lender and tells them, what's happening. And so the lender will in turn contact the realtors, both realtors, and provide them a window of opportunity in 72 hours. So it has to act pretty quickly. They have to basically provide more information, additional comparables to help support the value, or provide additional information to support the value. The purpose of Tidewater is to prevent appraisals coming in unnecessarily less than the sales price.
Can you talk to us also a little bit about value in terms of square footage above grade versus below grade? Because we've certainly had instances where maybe we didn't receive credit for things that we thought we should have that were perhaps in the basement. So how would that come into play?
Well, realtors and appraisers handle basement levels and above grade floors very differently. Appraisers are required to separate those two levels, and we have to value those two levels separately. And the main reason for that is there's such a wide variance on how basements are finished. You've probably been in a basement that looked like the Mac Daddy of all basements. It may be even nicer than the above grade floor, but you've also been in a basement that looked like a do-it-yourself project. And so we have to separate those two levels out. And again, realtors will typically include all of that square footage in their square footage that they're going to market. And a lot of homeowners look at it the same way also, as living space. But because we have to separate that level out, we have to use those two separately. Also, it could have a big impact on the value, especially if the realtor is marketing what to them is a much larger home than what the appraiser is really looking at.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what we should expect to see on an appraisal report itself?
Oh, sure. Actually, the appraisal report itself contains hundreds of pieces of information, but it's all tied to the subject property, talking about the features of the subject property, the finishes that are there, the upgrades, or the deferred maintenance. It's really a picture of the subject property for the reader.
Would you recommend a pre-listing appraisal?
I sure would. That especially in this market where values are kind of all over the place right now and there's such high demand. It's very important that you list that property correctly from the very beginning, because if you list it too low, you're going to sell it quickly and you might think that's great, but that's not necessarily a great thing because you might sell it less than what it should have been sold for. But if you list it too high, and again, even in this market, it might sit for a little while. And so it's very important to have that consultation appraisal up front so that they understand exactly where the value is.
And if a subsequent appraisal were to come in, let's just say, for example, less, would you guys defend the pre-listing appraisal? What would happen?
We do. That's actually built into our process of doing that consultation appraisal.
Now, cash buyers, Mark, on our cash exhibits, they have the opportunity to opt into an appraisal contingency. So certainly they may be reaching out to DS Murphy in addition to sellers who are interested in that pre-listing appraisal. But if someone's looking to hire you guys, can you tell us a little bit about where you're located and what your specialties are?
I can. We're actually located all over North Georgia. Our main office is in Sewanee, Georgia, but I'm one of 60 appraisers at DS Murphy. We're one of the largest appraisal firms in the Southeast. You can always go to our website, which is just www.dsmurphy.com. That's really the best way to get more information about who we are, what we do, and our services. You can also order an appraisal there, and you can pay for an appraisal there.
Thank you so much. These were great answers. We really appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you very much, Derek.